Right, we're live. Let's see who we have on here. All right, come on in, people. Come on in. I know it's early for people in the States, particularly in the East Coast and especially on the Pacific Coast. So I appreciate those who are coming from there and are tuning in today. Man, 1 year into the life of learning to relearn. Uh, so much to share about this book and how it's been the gift that keeps on giving. We'll give people a few more minutes to come on in before we really get started because there's so much to share. Hey, hey, Benny, I see you. So we'll bring you into the fold a little bit later, but great to have you here. All right, well, since we got some people here, I want to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and share the slide deck here so that you all can see what the program is for today. So here we are, y'all. Here we are. First anniversary live stream celebration. And we are currently streaming on 3 platforms, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. If you're on any of those platforms, hop on in. If you know any folks who are part of this Learn to Learn community, either they have the book or they're interested in learning more about the book, send them a DM, give them a text, let them know that we're live right now. We're about to get into some good conversation and celebration. So Learn to Relearn is a book that, like I said, continues to give so much good to the world. And I want to just spend a little bit of time sharing with you all the journey that I had to go through to get this book to completion, because there were a lot of things that happened along the way that many folks aren't even aware of. So I wanted to make sure that today was an opportunity for you all to learn some of these things. So I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit here. Now, here you have just a few of the thousands of folks who have purchased copies of Learn to Relearn. Uh, I wanted to show you all a video commemorating today's event, but right now We're having some technical difficulties, which is fine, but I just wanted to just give you all a sense of how far this book has traveled. So I want to say to date, this book is currently in the hands of more than thousands of readers, multiple thousands of readers across 20 plus countries globally. This book is a book that is in many international schools, libraries, in the hands of instructional coaches, school leaders, teachers. So, this is a book that has traveled very far and has logged many miles and is still continuing to log miles to this day. And never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would be finding myself writing a book, let alone a book that was over 300 pages long. Because I mean, I'm coming from a background where I started my first 4 or 5 years in a learning support classroom. And what the main issue for me was the ability to speak articulately, the ability to process information, which then impacted my ability to write, my ability to verbalize my thoughts and emotions to people. So to be able to do that in the form of this piece of work, it's kind of ironic that it ended up the way it did. But those are just some of the few people that have the copies of the book, and there are many more. So as we keep going, I want to start us off with this question. And many of you have copies of the book, or you've seen me talk about this book over the past year and some of the journeys I've gone through with it. So I want you to just put in the chat wherever you are, whether you're on StreamYard, whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. Let me know what word comes to mind when you think of learning to relearn. Just one word. And then I'll see what we got here in the comments. All right. We got impact here. Appreciate you, Teacher Traveler One. Dr. B in the building. Thank you, Dr. B. For those who don't know, Dr. B, so a few years ago, when I was starting my abroad journey and I was in Ethiopia, figuring out how to operate my business abroad, Dr. B was actually my business coach at that time, and she really gave me a lot of guidance as far as how I can make the business something that would be valuable to folks outside the states. And that early foundation really helped to get my podcast going, but also to figure out ways in which I can continue to have impact. So appreciate Dr. B and many other people who have been a part of this journey, even before I even started this book. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay, impactful. Thank you. And then there are many more words that I'm sure people will think of as we keep it going. But I do want to go ahead and keep things moving because there's a lot that we have to share here. So, throughout the production and the writing process of this book, there were three ladies who played a major role in ensuring that this book got to the place that it is today. Um, Short story. So, as you all know, this book was published through Stenhouse and Routledge. But little did people know, when I first signed my contract for this book, it was actually going to be published with another publisher, whose name I'm not going to mention, but this was a publisher that I'd always dreamed of publishing with. Many of the books from educators that I had purchased over the years came from this very publisher, and I always envisioned myself being someone that added to the legacy of the publisher. And I could tell you this without getting into too much detail, because it's not really about them. But when I first signed the contract, uh, this lady by the name of Holly Kim Price, she was the acquisitions editor for this publisher, and she was the one who believed in the book. She was the one that pushed for the book to be approved by this publisher. She advocated for me, and ultimately, this was a book that eventually would end up leading me to sign a contract. So this is back in November, maybe December 2021. So we're talking about 4 years ago. And what was interesting about that was there was a lot going on around that time. Within the first 6 or 7 months of me signing the contract, there was a controversy surrounding a reading curriculum that the same publisher was charged with producing. And the controversy was around the fact that there were certain terms that were required to be omitted that were around culturally affirming language. So anything that was focused on multilingual identities, anything that was focused on identities from the LGBTQIA plus community, anything that talked about race. So pretty much all the words that we talk about when we speak about identity affirming education, they had to be either edited out, omitted, or censored in some shape or form. And when I saw that this was taking place, I knew that it would lead to backlash, particularly from the authors under this publisher who had been publishing with them for many years. I knew that it would impact relationships. And you saw an influx of authors just saying, hey, I'm going to sever my ties and move on to another company that best aligns with my values. And I knew that I was at a crossroads when I saw this happening, and I had to give it some thought, uh, being that this was my first major published book. I had asked myself, that I want to be associated with that type of controversy, or that I want to break away and just turn a new leaf. And I decided to do the latter. So I requested my termination of that contract. And 3 weeks later, I found myself at Stenhouse. And the acquisitions editor at the time was Tracy Zager, who you see in the middle. And Tracy was somebody who embrace this project as if it was her own. She really believed in it just like Holly did, and she understood what was going on. She really did. And just to give you a little bit more about Holly, when I was looking for another publisher to get this book done with, Holly was actually the one who went out of her way to just say, hey, Kwame, you got to move on to another publisher because this is not going to work out. I don't like the things that they're doing that are contradictory to what you're trying to communicate in your book. And I want to help you get to that new publishing home. And she helped me from locating different publishers, from helping me with contracts, tutoring me on what to look for, what not to look for. So she did a lot more than she needed to get me there because she believed in it so much. And I'm so thankful for her. and hopefully, if she's on, she's hearing these words. Tracy, we were able to keep this going from, I want to say, probably November 2022, all the way up until the book was published in early, late, last November. So about a 3-year process, and a lot happened during that time. Um, so my wife was pregnant with our second son, who is now 2. We were moving back and forth between different countries. This book started in Ethiopia, and we were going back and forth between Ethiopia and the States due to COVID, as well as civil war that was there. And then, of course, we ended up moving to Sierra Leone, where I was able to edit a bulk of the book there, and it would eventually get published near the end of my family's tenure in Sierra Leone. So Tracy was there throughout all of that, and she had to go through some personal trials herself, and I won't mention too much about that because that's her story to tell. But for her to still be able to persevere through that, and we worked together to get that book to the finish line, it has meant everything. And then finally, Janessa came right near the end when we were trying to figure out a book cover to put out there. And Janessa was somebody who I had known about. We had been in many educator circles in the greater Boston area. So I was a little familiar with her work. I knew that she was a teacher, but I didn't really know about the artist side of her until I started to check her out on social media. And I just thought, wouldn't it be dope to have a woman of color design this book? And she's somebody who's a teacher, a full-time fourth grade teacher with 10 plus years experience. I said, this is a perfect marriage. Let's do it. So I was able to get Janessa hired to design the cover that you all see. And the rest is history. But these 3 ladies really played significant roles in seeing the book that you all see today. And I'm thankful for that. I am extremely thankful because it could have, it could have happened in a totally different way. But what's also cool is the fact that it was 3 women. And anybody who knows me, throughout the time I've done my podcast, throughout the time that I have done other projects, I've always made it a point to center women, particularly women of color, because we know that they are marginalized more than anybody in the workforce. We know that we still are in a society that is heavily patriarchal. When you look at the inequities in terms of wages and in other areas, the data is out there. So it was important for me to ensure that there was opportunities to highlight women, and then also just being raised by a woman who dealt with a lot of those similar issues. It was important for me to pay that forward. So that's the one thing I'm proud of about this process, was that it was women led all throughout from beginning to end. So I want to go ahead and keep going because we do have a panel that's coming up that's going to share some of their experiences. So these are the multiple voices that appear inside this book. Um, this is even a complete list. There were probably 10 more educators who either interviewed who I interviewed for the book and gave some great insights, but they just never made it into the final version of the book. But you just look at the names, it just reminds you that when you're doing something that's focused on multi-layered identities, folks coming from communities that I'm not even a part of, you needed to have these multiple voices. There was no way that I could speak about the indigenous slash native experience without having folks from that community. There was no way that I could speak about the Latinx and Hispanic experience without having folks from those communities. There was no way that I could speak about the Asian American Pacific Islander communities without folks from those communities. And that's the same for folks who are in the LGBTQIA plus community, even within the African diaspora. Yes, I'm a Black person, but I'm someone that came from a family of immigrants. Both my parents came from Ghana, West Africa. But you have folks who don't have that direct connection to Africa. And because of that, their experiences are different. So, all that to say, it was necessary to have all the voices that you see here. And I just want to make sure that I acknowledge them in the right way because this book doesn't get to this finish line without them. And then, of course, throughout the editing process, I had to lean on a multitude of folks who gave me some harsh feedback that was also necessary. These are folks who also wrote editorial reviews and believed in the book just as much as I did. And they really sacrificed their time to do a deep dive into this book, give me some suggestions. This led to me rewriting a chapter or two. This led to me doing some further research or watching a documentary on a particular section of a chapter that allowed me to have more depth. But this was the hardest part of the process. When you have people who are tearing up your manuscript left and right, up and down, and you have to just take it because you recognize that you have to get it right. When you're charged with a responsibility like I was of speaking on these different identities that I have no direct connection to, I had to make sure that I got the history right. I had to make sure that the language was appropriate and respectful. I had to make sure that whatever I wrote was going to be reflective of the lived experiences of the different communities I share about in the book. And these are the folks who made sure that I was held accountable for doing that. So I want to make sure that they're acknowledged as well. So we're going to keep it going because I think I see everybody here. And then as far as the inspiration for this book, I've shared about this on multiple podcasts. I've shared about this on different platforms. This was a book that had to be written. And the biggest reason is because being a first generation Ghanaian American, I know what it's like to have to spend so much of your life figuring out who you are and where you fit in and how you fit in. I had to deal with that personally. Um, from not being able to fluently speak my family's home language to spending a portion of my life, specifically my teenage life, in Ghana, going to school there, being in the same school as folks who had lived in Ghana their whole lives and being othered in that situation, being a neurodiverse individual who was in the learning support classroom in my early elementary years and being othered because of that. I know what it's like to have those multi-layered identities and you're just trying to figure out how to fit in and where to fit in. And then I got two sons who also have multi-layered identities. They have Ghanaian heritage in them. They have Panamanian heritage in them. They have Bayesian heritage in them. So they're going to be navigating a world. Well, they're currently navigating a world where they're in spaces where folks are coming from different walks of life. They spent practically their whole lives outside the United States. So they're in this kind of gray space where they're living this third culture lifestyle. And as a parent, you have to guide them in helping them understand who they are and to embrace all the identities that they hold. So this was a book that served many purposes, and I wanted to make sure that this was a book that my children will be able to read when they get old enough to understand the depths of the knowledge that's contained in here. So there are many things to share there. And then finally, the podcast, being able to interview so many folks from different walks of life and being able to do it over the past almost 6 years. I mean, most of the excerpts and details that you see in the book came from past podcast episodes. So when I say that I had to be a student of all this, I was a student as well as the interviewer. So as they're sharing their stories, as they're sharing their most vulnerable moments in their lives, I'm taking it all in as lessons. And I was able to translate those lessons into what you all see as content within this book. But that was the inspiration behind all of this. And then these are just the core pillars for those who have never opened the book up and you don't have a copy. This is what it contains. We're talking about culture sponsored teaching. We're focusing on understanding the backgrounds of different students and how those are assets for learning. We're also talking about how to address biases and stereotypes that we hold about students who come from diverse backgrounds. We're also even focusing on how to dismantle different forms of identity-based harm, which are highly prevalent in international schools, particularly with students who do come from third culture backgrounds, like my two sons. And then when we talk about identity affirming education, it's about building the self-awareness. It's about building pride in who you are, and also making sure that we're having access to curriculum and materials that are reflective of our experience and identities. So when we talk about learn to relearn, it encompasses those three key areas. And then, of course, this is just a breakdown of the book. We have 9 total chapters. As I've mentioned, this is not a book that you need to read from page 1 to page 334. You can start at chapter 6 and you can kind of hop around there. But for those who maybe just purchase a copy of the book, my recommendation would be that you read the intro. I think it's important for you to have context as to why this book was written, but also start at chapter 1. Chapter 1 should be a starting point. That is a non-negotiable. In order to understand how identity-based harm works, you also have to understand how white supremacy culture works, how whiteness works in our schools and in our greater society. So chapter 1 gives you that foundation. And then from there, you can go to all the other chapters. But if you're looking for the practical part of the book, that's chapters 6 through 9. If you're looking to build capacity around different historically marginalized communities, then you go to chapters 1 through 5. So that's basically how you want to navigate the book. But definitely you start with the intro, and then of course you go to chapter 1, and then from there you can hop around to different sections depending on what your current context is community wise. So we're getting close to our panel discussion, but before we get there, for those who are with us today, just give me a lesson. What is a lesson that you've had to relearn this year, if any? I know I've had my share of lessons, but I'm curious to know what are some things that you had to relearn, maybe about yourself or maybe about your current context that you find yourself in. So I want to give people space to process that and share. And then while people are doing that, I'm going to check these comments. Ah, thank you, Jamie. Jamie. Good to see you. Shauna, good to see you as well. Good morning. I know it's early in Connecticut. And then I find myself coming back to certain chapters. It's so rich as a resource. Thank you so much, Teacher Traveler One. And I mean, and this is a book that is going to force you to have to return to different chapters because there's so much there. In addition to the website that has a lot of these materials and free resources that you all can access. But thank you all for some of those comments. All right, I got teacher wait time, so we'll see what we come up with. Lessons. I know we got lessons, y'all. All right, here we go. Relearning how I am perceived, in parentheses, my racial identity in my current geographic context. Honestly, I think that's an ongoing lesson that many of us are relearning, including myself. When you are a Black expat living in any foreign country, you're always subconsciously wondering how people view you in order to figure out how to navigate those different spaces. So it's something that I can relate to more than most. But thank you, Jamie, for that reminder. All right. I'm sure we got some other ones, but I'm not gonna go ahead and I'm not gonna waste too much time because we do have a lot to share. So if people have more to share, we'll definitely flash those comments as we continue the conversation. Okay, I got another one here. My 2025 life lesson, refocusing on my vision as life evolves. Thank you, Dr. B. Uh, I think it's always important to reflect, especially as we near the end of another calendar year. We always need that time to look back and think of just the different ways that we can be better as individuals. All right. So, all right, let's see. So, this has been the journey for the past year. I can't believe it's been a year already, but Learn to Relearn has been able to garner many different honors. Um, and I've been able to have some rich discussions with different communities, both virtually and in person, and in different geographical contexts over the past year. So, as far as the awards go, I mean, to be able to get four major awards, well, three. First being the 2025 Epi Gold Medal, then the Ford Indies Gold Medal, and then most recently receiving the gold medal for the best academic book through the International Impact Book Awards. And I just found out a couple days ago that Learn to Relearn finished as a finalist for this year's Best Book Awards in two categories, one for Best Interior Design, and then the second category was for Best Education Academic Book. And this is just 2025. The book is in the running for more awards in 2026, but we won't find out about those results until midway through next year. And then to have 82 five-star reviews through Amazon, and then more reviews on Goodreads and other platforms, it just comes to show you how powerful this book is, and how it's impacted so many communities. Um, and then the collaborations I've been able to do this past year, the most significant being the one I had with the Elms College Center for Equity in Urban Education. I want to thank Dr. Tyra Good. I also want to thank Dominique McDonald and the CUE team at Elms College for buying, I don't know how many copies. I mean, they bought, I think, 50, maybe 60 or 65 copies for folks in their program. And we ended up doing a 3-month book talk on the book, as well as a webinar. So to be able to impact teachers who are about to enter the classrooms, pre-service teachers, that was cool. So much respect to Elms College, CUE. Appreciate you all. And then we have ALOC. ALOC, I've been a member of ALOC for going on 5 years now. And ALOC, just as much as other folks I've mentioned, played a major role in me even wanting to write this book and even have the confidence to write the book because of how much confidence they've instilled in me. So shout out to ALOC. And then so many other communities where I was able to hold book talks in person. So there's a couple bookstores there, Nubian Markets in Boston, and then Burst Into Books in Chicago. I was able to see folks in person and have some really great conversations there. And then Belonging Effect, which is based in the UK. I was able to collaborate with them and participate in their World Book Day, where I was able to share a lot about the book. And then most recently with the Worthy Educator, we just had a book talk maybe 2 weeks ago with them. So I want to be able to shout out all these different organizations that, even in the midst of this current social political, can't even talk, even in the midst of this socio-political climate, they still said yes and remain committed to this identity affirming work. So I'm appreciative of their partnerships along the way. And I know for those that have a copy, you may have it with you. Maybe you remember a quote from the book, but I'm curious to know, and this might be a tough question, but do y'all have any favorite quotes from the book? Or maybe there was a particular section of the book or a chapter that really resonated with you and really spoke to your teaching practice or just professional practice overall. So yeah, let me know, what are some quotes that stuck out to you, and how has that challenged or affirmed what you're doing within your school community? So yeah, let's see. I mean, I know I have a lot of favorite quotes in this book. It's hard to choose one. So I can understand if people need the extra time to really dig in and figure out what quote really resonated with them. Because there's a lot there. There's a lot. All right, well, as people are thinking about that, I'm sure we'll get some comments as we move forward. But I want to make sure that we keep it going. Don't want to have any idle time. And I want to get to the panel. So I got 4 individuals who have been personally impacted by this book, and they're coming from different parts of the globe. And, they were nice enough to volunteer their time to be on stage with me to share about their experiences with the book and how they've been able to use it in their professional context. So I'm not going to introduce these individuals. I'm going to bring them onto the stage and give them the opportunity to introduce themselves. So let's bring them on. All right. Here we go. I think we got everybody. Hey, good morning or good afternoon. I don't know where everybody is.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hello.
Yes.
Early
Can
morning.
hear you all.
It's afternoon for me.
All
That's
right. So
convenient.
I know so Elka and I, we're definitely in the same time zone. So I know it's afternoon for both of us. Hey, Benny, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. I got kicked off some kind of way once I posted something. Good to be here, Kwame. Thank you for having me.
Well, listen, it's good to have you all here. I can't talk about this book without having folks who have been impacted by it personally. And I know for each of you, you all have your own stories for how this book has been helpful for your practice. And I wanted to give you all an opportunity to share with our viewers, how that has been for you all. So, I got a few questions just to get the conversation going. But you know me, I like to keep it organic. So however the conversation goes, it goes. But before we do get started, I do want to give you all a chance to introduce yourselves to the folks. Don't need to share your whole bio, but just a few tidbits. So like who you are, where you're tuning in from, and then just the nature of the work you're doing right now professionally. So I'll start with Benny, and then we'll go up from there.
Okay, thank you so much. I just want to congratulate you first and foremost, Kwame. You are an inspiration in this educational journey for so many of our students, being that voice. So I really appreciate your journey, your story, your expertise. So congratulations today. My name is Abini Johnson. I'm from Flint, Michigan. I'm currently in Abidjan in Cote d'Ivoire, West Africa. I'm an early years intervention teacher. I'm a learning support teacher. I'm here with my son, who's senior. He started at the International Community School of Abidjan when he was only 5 years old. And so it all kind of started as a journey for me in early years because I wanted to be a supportive mother for my son who had just come from the US. And my husband at the time, he was at the US Embassy in the DAO department. So we're coming as not only a military family, we're coming here as a diplomatic family as well. With our family, I have an older child as well in university first year in Columbia. So I'm just grateful to be here, and I can't wait to share how this book has been so impactful, not only for my own children, but also my students. Thank you.
Thank you, Benny. Appreciate you. All right, let's go to Janet. Hey, Janet.
Hey, Kwame. Good to see you.
Good to see you
See
too.
everyone. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Well, I'll just tell folks who I am. Janet Ferrone. Currently, I'm a lecturer at Curry College, just outside of Boston, Mass, in the U.S. After a 30-plus year career K-12 education in Boston public schools, primarily virtually working with kids of color, kids who were in marginalized, just a lot of situations that needed a lot of support. And you came to that work just by virtue of being with students that I really needed to show up as a white woman in a way that was appropriate and supportive for them. So it's been a long journey, and this book just keeps it going. And I teach in, as I said, in Curry College, teaching teachers a lot on neurodiversity, disability, and culturally responsive practices in our DEI, Diverse and Equitable Instruction Master's Program. So so I always like to tell this fun fact. Kwame and I lived on the same street for a quick minute, and like locked down, like I didn't see anybody, wasn't out of my house. And we got brave one day, and Kwame and his wife came in my backyard. We sat like not 6 feet, like 20 feet apart. Even his wife was 20 feet from him. I didn't really know why that happened, but and we just started talking about our work in Boston and education. And I was like, wow, I'm like, we're kind of aligned here. I like talking to this guy. He gave me his book, Identity Talk. Is that the right title?
I think it was the first book, Shape to Teach Identity. I gave you a copy of that.
Yeah. I got the other, yeah. And then he was gone. And then I followed his journey online. And when this book came out, I went to his book talk in Roxbury. I opened the book and I thought, oh my God, this like lines up with my syllabus. Then and there, I decided I'm changing my book. I'm going to use this in my course. But as Kwame knows, even though Curry has been great about keeping the DEI program and my course, Culturally Responsive Educational Practices, with what's going on in the US here, we got one sign up. So the course isn't running. But I am really looking forward to using the book when people come to their senses and we can run the program and run the course again.
Yes, thank you, Janet. And I'm confident that people will come to their senses and do what they know is right, but it's just a very scary and difficult time, as we all know very well, not just in the States, but all over the world. All right. Yes. I'll go to Elke.
Yes, hi, I'm Elke from Dresden International School. I'm an IB educator for 25 years now. So I've never changed the international school. So I stayed there and looked how it was growing and contributing. And I teach visual arts and theory of knowledge the most. I also taught German literature. And I'm very involved in student voice, in building up systems and helping them to express their views and ideas and thoughts in various ways. And that involves system work as well. So, and your book was highly impactful, as you know, on various levels. It really impacted my teaching, including visual arts, some units I've already established before. And so very affirming. And inspiring. I will work with this book really with my students, because we are planning to host a DIJ conference. It will be a student-led conference at my school. And so, yeah, there's far more to come. Thank you for inviting me. I'm quite honored and a bit nervous, humbled. So, yeah.
Oh, don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. No, you're a family right here. You're a family. So, no, it's all good. All right. Gerald, I see you on the move, brother. So, let me get
Yeah,
you
I'm
on here.
traveling today. Good morning, everybody. On my way to Florida for the weekend. Hope
right.
everyone's doing well. Jarrell Adams, and I am a director of equity, inclusion, belonging, and community engagement at Lancaster Country Day School in Pennsylvania. So nice to be going to sunny Florida today. And prior to working as the director of DEIB at Lancaster Country Day School, I worked as a principal in New York City and New Jersey, and I worked as an international school principal in Colombia, and I've also worked at international schools in Hong Kong, Congo, Brazzaville, and in Ecuador. And I think for me, Learning to Relearn has been a great book, because my job is to build capacity in my school. And by being able to share this book with my lower school, middle school, and upper school DEIB liaisons, we're able to speak the same language and have a mentor text that we're all able to share with our teachers and have a coordinated message from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade. And I love it because although we all have our own perspectives and ideas, having a mentor text gives us all something to refer back to. And it grounds us in research and not just our own opinions. And, working in a place like Central Pennsylvania, I think it's important to be able to share research-based practices and lived experiences. There's room for both. But I definitely think that I'm able to get my message across better when I'm able to share research-based practices in addition to people's lived experiences. And I think both of those tell a story. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, man, for doing this as you are traveling. So this is the commitment right here. Even when we're on the move, you're still on. And that's a microcosm of the commitment that people have continued to demonstrate with regard to this book and how to apply it into their respective contexts. So I want to switch up the view in here so we can, there we go. I'd like to switch it up here. So I actually have some questions to ask you all. And this is a good question to start off with. So you all kind of answered the first question in your introduction, so I'm going to skip over to this one. Can you share a specific example of how you've applied at least one of the principles from the book in your practice? So any stories around how you've been able to apply any of the principles?
Well, I'll start.
Go ahead.
One of as an early years teacher, literacy is fundamental. And without having representation in our classroom libraries, I just think that it's essential for our students to see themselves when I'm telling stories, when I'm reading stories. And I love that resource that you had, the equity book audit form. And I love also that not only do you mention it, going back to what Gerald said, it's evidence-based, it's research-based, but you also provided the tools and the resources, and you have a QR code so that we have access to templates so that we can utilize them and implement them in our classroom practices. But I really appreciated that tool. I was thinking about how culturally affirming classrooms need to have culturally affirming literacy resources. So in my own classroom, I've used AI to create books that tell the story of my own students, so that they can hear their voices in books and literacy and literature that I use. So my son was the one who actually inspired me, because he's dyslexic, and being an African American, you're highly marginalized and wanting to be in these special ed classroom settings, just like you tell in your Young, Black, and Misunderstood introduction. And it kind of was so parallel to my son in a way that I, like your mother, I was the advocate, and I wanted his voice to be valued, heard, and acknowledged. And so when we got his diagnosis that he's dyslexic, his father at the time would say, "Oh, he's just lazy. He's not trying." But what we found out was the boy was a brilliant storyteller. So we created a book using speech to text, and he created his own and published his own book. So from that experience and seeing it as a resource in your own, I call it a guidebook, Kwame, because it's so practical. It's practical and it's resourceful. So just allowing my child to be my first student. I was his first, primary teacher, his early years teacher, and he taught me how to teach other students that may have these learning differences and may have these learning deficits. And he was my teacher on how to teach. And so seeing that equity resource of literacy, how to just go to the book title and to get the audit of what this book realizes. And if you're using it in the right context, it was very helpful for me. The auditing books was very helpful. So thank you for that piece in your book.
All right. Appreciate you for sharing that. I know you shared that with me before, so it's always good to hear that again. Anybody else want to jump in? No particular order. Want to make sure everybody got a chance to share. All right,
I must say the stories that I just so inspiring and useful, because coming from a TOK teacher, decolonization is part of my syllabus. I'm trying to decolonize the entire sources, resource we are using, and confirmation bias is something that is part of the syllabus, a classical IB part, right? But how to really show the implications of that, because an international school, I think, is quite exclusive. It's a bubble in itself, yet is supposed to help students become internationally minded citizens. So there's action involved, and what I really value about this is that I can use specific examples that go beyond my first set. So this is an endless choice board for me. It is an anchor. It's inspiring me. It grounds me. It really helps me to go for resources that I can offer my students to discover independently. So I really value agency in my classroom. And what it means, confirmation bias, all these logical fallacies, right? At the moment, we're doing knowledge and language. So indigenous languages as well is involved. But we are in Europe, we are in Germany. So, there's some link, but making it so relevant to the students isn't always easy. And if you have first-hand stories or a concrete list of terms dealing with acronyms, I'm so bad at this. It's not my mother tongue as well. It helps me even questioning the fact that you use acronyms for certain groups. I just used, by the way, in my last class, the section on the Pacific Islands, right? So yes, you discuss colonialism, you discuss the impact of that, and then language is being created, but the harm that goes hand in hand with creating language, and then the intention behind that, and then leaving it there because there's no lobby. So having empathy is something that I always try to create, not only from my side, but also in the students. And storytelling is an amazing starting point. And again, I agree, your book isn't only practical, it is so intellectual as well. And this is what I can contribute. It's amazing. It really helped increasing the authenticity of what I was trying to teach as well. And so students are very curious. So we only have one copy in the library. I guess we need to order more so they can lend the book as well.
Yes, order more. That's all I want to hear. We got to order more. Make sure everybody get a copy. And listen, if you need support with how to do that, I got the information. You can get that directly from Rutledge. Shameless plug. Get it from Rutledge. It's international. they ship everywhere in the world.
Mhm.
So no limitations there. All right. I'm gonna go to you, Janet.
Sure, I was going to jump in. So when, like I said, my main work was K-12, and then I just got asked, like, hey, you wanna come teach? You want to come supervise teachers? So I had to. I mean, the thing that sticks for me is the unlearning piece, the unlearning and the relearning. Um, when I started teaching, I was teaching online. I was not at the college. I didn't have a community. Having books like this is like you feel like you have a community. And I looked at like other people's syllabi and the online course platform. And in my mind, it was like, okay, this is like what not to do. All the courses had a weekly written reflection. And I thought, it's so like just writing is so limited. It's inaccessible. So many of I was able to bring my students with me to the college level thinking, writing is maybe not a strength, but they can express themselves. Um, like Abani was saying about, the dyslexic student and storytelling, like you see the deficit space and then you discover like these huge strengths. So I really use like a UDL approach. So keep the reflection. The reflection was good, but they can do it audio, they can do it video, they can make me a graphic. Even in the assignments, there was choice involved. And, talking about art, two of my students did some graphical representations. One of a refrigerator mom, that myth that the cold-hearted mom causes autism. It was so beautiful and just illustrated it so much better than textbooks and things. I've asked two of my students, can I take this and use it in my lessons for the next group? It's been so rich in that. And the unlearning, I realize I'm you said this earlier, white woman in spaces working with not just kids of color, but I'm trying to teach like other folks who have kind of a limited suburban white worldview. Um, and I last year, when my course was still running, we did a prompt, what I had to unlearn to learn this, uh, from you. And um, it was one of the hardest classes because it's hard facing a lot of this stuff, like you were saying, when the edits and the folks who are giving you feedback, it's hard to, it goes to your heart. So it really kind of helped shift away from like compliance based and the things that people don't realize are embedded in their brains. So I feel like that I really want to keep that unlearning piece, even for myself. Sometimes I think I got it down, and then you like uncover like, oh, I'm still carrying that, like how I was raised, how that box, and I got to
Mhm.
unlearn that. So I feel like it's just, it's just not like something that happens and then you go to the next book. Like it's a continuous cycle, learning, unlearning, relearning. So thank you for that.
And appreciate you for sharing that too. And the last point you made about it being something that has longevity and sustainability. And when I wrote it, that was the type of intentionality that I wanted to write with. I wanted to make sure that this was not just a book that you just read one time and you just put it on the shelf. You got to revisit it time and time and time again, especially now with what's been going on. And I'm not a gambler or anything, but I would bet that this is something that's going to continue to happen. I can bet on that. All right. Here we go. Gerald, what you got for me?
I was listening as everyone was sharing, and I thank you all for just being vulnerable and sharing what it's like. I think it's important that we consider our own perspectives first, right? We know that identity is about, you have to first acknowledge your own. You have to know yourself before you know others. And I think in my position where I'm responsible for, DEIB initiatives for a whole school, I have to also think about what my school is ready for. And so I wanted to just be vulnerable and share that I did not think that Section 1 was necessarily a starting point for my school. And I think that
That's good.
as we
That's
look at the
huge.
book, you have to know your school community. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I look at chapter 1, examining and disrupting the culture of whiteness. That's not a starting point for my school. I work and I live in central Pennsylvania, not in Philadelphia, not in New York City. And so for me, for my school, I thought that Section 2 was more of a better starting point for my particular school. Because one thing my school seems to be on board with is affirming the identities of our students. And I thought, why not meet them where they are for now? We'll start with something very, very familiar. And then I've also started, I started the Human Libraries Project in my book, and I saw a connection between the Human Libraries Project and you talking about combating dominant narrative through storytelling, right? So those were two things that I was able to harness within my school community and go, hey, we all have been talking about cultural competence, not through workshops and PowerPoints, but cultural competence through the human libraries and being able to tell our own stories to our colleagues on professional development days when there are no students there, and just getting to know each other through that lens. That works for my school community. So I would say that for me, leaning into Section 2 and knowing my school community in central Pennsylvania, it was a great starting point for me. And there's so many, like you said, there's so many other um, things that you can go back to. I'd like to have each of my division liaisons go through, co-creating a collaborative classroom. Again, these are things my school community is already on board with. So I like the idea of harnessing your book, Kwame, as a mentor text. And if I can use it as a mentor text, then I can get everyone to speak the same language. And yeah, I'd love to come back to Section 1. I think that's work we need to do. But it wasn't where I needed to start with my school community. And so I
Mm.
think if each of us can look at the book through that lens, know your community, know your constituents. I mean, our goal is pretty much what Kwame said in the book, is to help students build a self-positive image of who they are. And so I led with that. My whole school community is on board with that. The mission of my school is to help students become the best versions of themselves. So again, for me, it was leaning into that piece of it. And then hopefully, I'd love to come back to Section 1 and be able to leverage that. But I needed to meet them where they were. And I think that if each of us can look at the book through that lens, look at your school community and make sure they're ready for it. Because once they're ready for it, then you can leverage, the stories in the book to maybe get us through some of the deeper topics that we need to get into. And I would say for my school, it would be getting into Section 1. But I need to build the foundation and have that relationship with them. And I think I can do that through Section 2 for now.
Mm. And yeah, and Jarrell, thank you so much for mentioning that, because it's a reminder that different schools are in different places of the journey. Some need to start with chapter 1. Some already acknowledge that white supremacy culture exists, so we don't need to go through chapter 1. Let's go to another chapter, right? So it's always telling when you have these different schools, especially the ones that I've worked with, share their stories and tell me some of the things that are challenges in their context. And this is actually getting me to this next question, which I just came up with because of the conversations we're having. So Janet already alluded to this in her context, where she has a culturally responsive teaching course at the college she's at, and only one student has registered for the course because there's so much apprehension and so much fear, right? And I think there's an argument that can be made about a resistance to what we believe in this panel. So my question for you is, and maybe it's not happening in your school, but I'm curious, in situations where you do experience resistance to this important work that we're speaking of today, how do you go about helping or helping your colleagues understand the urgency and the relevance of the work that we all understand to be relevant here. So anybody can just kind of share what's on their mind. And for those who are watching, feel free to drop comments in if that's something that you've had experience in your school. Because resistance is something that's happening now, and I think it's important for us to equip our fellow educators with tools and with different approaches to address this issue, because it will come about. It already is coming about. So,
I mean, I believe schools need to really build sustainable systems. In international schools, you sometimes have a lot of people coming and going, or a rapid leadership change, or it comes and goes in waves. And with that, also different types of resistance phases can come up. Sometimes you think, oh, you need to go back and start all over again, or a certain system work was even, or systemic work was even then rejected because a new leader came in and then needed to actually establish their own ground first. So I still, even though this happens, believe in systems, because from there we can practice the practice. So you can only evaluate the practice, how you live policies. In international schools, you create tons of policies, right? And then there's always this accreditation coming up, and you need to show the evidence. But then again, you need to collect authentic examples and evidence that you live up to these policies, right? So, but on this journey where this real work happens, when you live up to them, right? Sometimes communication can be hindering that process, and intercultural competence is really missing. This is what I see. So it's not the intent, it's just the part missing. And besides system, if you have regular PDs, you can overcome these gaps, or these suddenly stagnations whenever somebody is leaving or not, or political circumstances changed. So if you have this embedded in your school life and how you want to grow as a learning community, I believe you can have more sustained focus on living up to those policies. So you need to have both systems and the practices, but also great input. You need to have PD, allow staff members to show and shine. And there's so much expertise that is often not really shared or put the spotlight on. It doesn't have to be always external. It often can happen from the inside, outside. Again, you need to have a system in place that this is possible, and then you can nurture cultures, right? So.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And the part where you said that it doesn't have to be external, I believe that a lot of the performative activity happens when people just decide, well, this is more of a vanity thing for me. I just want to show off what I'm doing. But then the question becomes, if the spotlight's not on you, do you still persist in that work? Because that's where the true authenticity lies, right? When you are doing it, even when there's no camera or some kind of lens pointing at you. And I think that's really the mark of what it truly means to be committed. Any other thoughts about this question around resistance? Because that's something that unfortunately deters people from getting deep into this work.
Yeah, I'm really in the thick of it. Not just that the course didn't run, the DEI program, is it's there, but I want to appreciate the college for keeping it there, not renaming it, doing that. But in a couple of things, one of my ways of resistance is no matter what course I'm teaching, I'm bringing this stuff in. I'm teaching understanding autism spectrum, and I mean, I geek out on the culture stuff, but I'm just, going through like, how do cultures view it? How do Asian cultures, how do, the South Koreans have this view, the married to a guy of an Indian background. If you have autism, you keep it quiet because then your daughters aren't marriageable because there's bad blood in the family. So I'm bringing in, I just taught a course on transition to adulthood. And we talked about dealing with families with different cultures. And I brought it all in through that. So, it's not like you need a culturally responsive course to be culturally responsive. In fact, just the opposite. You got to do it. It's got to be embedded in everything. But the other piece, and this I think is back to the unlearning, I thought, I'm in Massachusetts, things are good. And we had a faculty email around Charlie Kirk. And the college was saying, oh, we're going to give students a space to process. I thought I was in Massachusetts. I said, well, do we have a process? How come, how do we know? What message are we sending to our students of color? What message are we sending to our LGBTQ students and things? And I don't want you all to Google this because I don't want the right wingers to get any more views. But someone on our faculty shared our emails with these right-wing kind of groups. And I have been plastered, my face, my address, everything doxed all over the place. And then the people in my town who are, we think we're in a liberal area. Oh man, they jumped on that. So it was a real eye opener for me that I couldn't send an email, and I didn't call the man names. I didn't, we got accused of celebrating murder. I just was asking about, as I always do, my students of different identities. And, so there's just a lot around this. But yeah, I'll stop there.
I know it can go real deep. It can go really deep. So as you all were sharing, there was a question that came up. So I want to flash that here for everybody. So this is from, hey, Dolores. Hey, Dolores. Good friend of mine. All right. She asks a question. Do mission statements exist in the educational arena? Yes, they do. And then she says, I feel that a very clear and strong mission can put everyone in a similar mindset. Emphasizing the mission, displaying the mission can be referred to at all times. I think all of us can agree with that sentiment. I think the question becomes, yeah, they do exist on paper or on a website, but do they live within your school community? Do they live within your school culture? Is it something that every school community member embodies in their practice? I think that's the true test to whether or not the mission statement is something that is embedded within the school community. But before I ask the final question, I wonder if anybody wanted to chime in on that, because I think that's an important point.
And that is an important point because, like you said, Kwame, it's a live document. Really, it's not just simply words on your website, your school's website. It should be lived. It should be a live document. So if you're not practicing it, what good is having that mission statement? And also, what I realize is that you have to practice it. You have to model what your mission statement is. And I know for our school at the International Community School of Abidjan, that mission was created with students, teachers, parents involved. So they have to have that accountability and they need to live it out as well.
All right. Thank you.
I agree. It really resonates because every international school has that. We as well. And students are exposed to this. It's everywhere, every classroom, right? But what they really value the most, I believe, is, including myself as a teacher and leader, is when you see it's being modeled and lived, right? So it can't be just models here and there. It should be a sustainable approach to this. And it can be so impressive if students can showcase that as well. So this week actually, a courageous talent show organized by my student voice. They came up with the title, and they used their own values and mission in order to build everything up. And the contributions varied massively. We had neurodiverse contributions as well as pre-recorded ones, and I've never seen the school sports hall so much in focus and engaged at the same time. I was a bit nervous beforehand because it was also risk-taking. No, it's very vulnerable. They took the risk to go ahead with this. It was completely student-led, all informed, guided, and supported by their self-defined values. And it worked out. It was amazing. They wanted to do another one, etc. So this really reminded me on what you were saying again, even though this is not a clear, direct response to our school mission, and but we developed the student voice values and their mission from our school mission, and this is in a way a wonderful, maybe authentic example that students modeled the values, and it therefore became real. And I wish that teachers would do this also more often, and leaders as well, because then they become alive. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I'm being mindful of time, and we're actually doing good, but I want to make sure we get to the remaining part of the program. I want to wrap up this discussion with this final question. And this one, we could keep it brief. What is one message you would share with educators who may be beginning their learn to relearn journey, whatever that looks like for them? One message or maybe a piece of advice you would give them.
Can I hop in here?
Go ahead.
Um,
Go ahead,
I think
Jerome.
I think Kwame, your text again. I probably said this before, but it's so important um, for educators to be educators, and we got to remember that. And we
Mm,
ask students all the time, right? We start a lesson on historical fiction. We read historical fiction to them, and then they're able to then practice it themselves. We have to follow those same models as educators, right? And so when I think of teaching others, right, we're learning to relearn. I think you really have to hit at your school's story. We have to, when we buy books for our school communities, we have to connect them to our own mission, our own vision, our own values. And so if you can find a way to introduce this text or any other text through the lens of your own community commitments, it will really help draw that through line. And again, for me, it was being able to say, I purchased this book, I used the school credit card, and here's why, right? We say that as our school mission, that we're going to help students become the best version of themselves. That's our school mission. Kwame didn't write that. We wrote that. So now we
mm,
need to live that. So now I bought this book, Learning to Relearn, so that we can support students to become the best version of themselves by helping our school community become inclusive. So I think it's very important to make sure you draw those through lines for your school community and help them understand the values that they've already stated and how those stated values align to the topics in this book. And I think the more we can draw those connections, the more buy-in we'll get from our school community, because it's not some random book off the internet. I was also able to use some inclusive school community questions. Our school attends the Rosetta Lee Multicultural Resource Center professional development every year. And they have 4 community questions that I use from that PD. And they are, do you see me? Do you hear me? Will
mm,
you treat me fairly? And will you protect
mm,
me? And so when I'm able to go over those same 4 questions with all students and all teachers, then I'm able to say, yes, when we bought this book is going to make sure that your students can answer in the affirmative. Do you see me? Yes, my teachers see me. Do you hear me? Yes, my teachers hear me. Will you treat me fairly? Yes, my teachers are going to treat me fairly. Will you protect me? Yes, if there's identity-based harm in my school community, my teachers have a toolkit, and they're using this toolkit to make sure that we can all answer those 4 questions in the affirmative. And you know what? One step further. If you can't answer yes, then here's what we're working on. This
There
is
you
why
go.
we bought this book, because these are our next steps. So again, ground those questions or any connections to this book, ground it in what your school has already stated that you're doing. And then draw those through lines saying, hey, I've identified some gaps. I know that we want to be the best we can be, but here's our next step. And here's how this book can help us get there. I think that would help with buy-in for anyone that's new to the book.
All right. Appreciate that, Jarrell. Anyone else want to jump in? Piece of advice for any educators began their journeys. Yes,
Yeah.
Elka.
I think start with yourself. Take the risk to really question memories as well, because they really shape your thinking and behavior judgment, especially when you're in a stressful situation. So memories can stick with you. Be open therefore to relearn, but honestly, humility is something that I think is the first go to, and then you have courage to do it step by step. This is what I would actually throw in here.
There you go. Critical humility is so
Oh,
important.
yes, I wanted to tag on to what you said, Elk. I was thinking about the work that Dr. Yolanda Seeley reads about the archaeology of self. Have you heard of that? And I know you know this, Kwame. When you can be humble enough to really self-reflect and do that deep excavation about who you truly are, when you can finally kind of look yourself in the mirror and say, hold on, do I have critical love in me as an educator? Am I humble? That critical humility, do I have that as an educator to learn, to relearn? Do you have that deep critical reflection? Do you have historical literacy? And do you have that archaeology of yourself where you're going deep and you peeling the layers of your own biases as a person? So once you can do that, you will interrupt any type of racial literacy development or any type of unjust that is going on in your school. So it does go back to digging deep into yourself. Yeah. Be humble.
Yes. Be
Um,
humble.
Real quickly, I love what everyone's saying. I'm thinking about the teachers I work with. I work in a lot of different schools, and some of them are so overwhelmed, and what they perceive when you bring something to them is like, oh, it's another thing to add on top of all the other things. And people are, as you probably know, the burnout is real. So I feel like knowing how to, knowing their identities, knowing how they operate, even if you can just say, this is not on top of, this is a way of thinking. And let's pick one area. Is it how you're dealing with behavior? Is it your grading? Like starting small, because there's so much in the book. And I really love that, you can just jump in anywhere in the book. So sometimes just working with a teacher of like, what's resonating with them. Okay, well, let's take that area and just do that. But like universal design for learning, which I love, like it's not an extra. It's like hopefully getting you to think a certain way, and it may even like help you with your planning, because you're meeting the needs of a whole diverse group without having to go, oh, this kid needs this kid needs that, which you still do. But so just that sort of like, it's not huge, let's start small.
All right. And we're going to wrap up this conversation here. We can go on, but we all got a full day ahead to to finish up. So I want to thank Janet, Ebony, Jarrell, and Elka for being here. Thank you for taking time to get up in the morning, particularly Janet and I think just Janet. Yeah,
It
getting
is
up
not
early
my
in the
hour.
morning.
I'm never up at this
I
time.
know that's love right there. That's love right there. So I appreciate that. And I know for everybody else who's kind of closer to my time zone, thank you so much. And Jarrell, safe journey. I see you on the move. Safe
I'm getting
journey
ready to
to
board. Yeah, great
Florida. All right,
conversation.
perfect timing.
And congratulations on your 1 year anniversary. It's an honor to be on the journey with you. And I'm looking forward to incorporating some of your work into my doctoral dissertation on culturally responsive leadership practices. So we got to talk some
Ooh.
more.
All right, brother.
All
So
right.
you might want to stick around because I got some stuff I'm about to share that might help you with that,
Okay.
with your doctoral stuff. So, all right. Thank you all so much. And y'all, I'm assuming y'all gonna stick around for the rest of it. I got some big announcements about to make. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you again. Thank you so much.
Thanks
Have
so
a good
much.
day, everybody. Thank you.
All right. All right, y'all. So let me get back to the screen here. All right, cool. Let me. All right, there we go. So, as we wrap up this celebration, a few things I want to share. So, if you're wondering, how can you support not just this book, Learn to Relearn, but how can you support all things identity talk? There are a few things that you can do to help push this mission forward. Obviously, ordering a copy of the book is always helpful. Sharing it with a friend, recommending it to a friend, that always helps. If you're somebody who has already purchased a copy of the book, you've read it, you love what you read, please leave a 5-star review either on Goodreads or Amazon or wherever you leave your reviews on books. We also have an exclusive membership community called the Forum, which has different membership tiers. So if you're someone that loves the podcast, if you're someone that loves all the other programming that Identity Talk provides, please consider being a subscriber today. And you can contribute as little as $3 a month or as big as $100 a month, depending on what your financial situation is. So make sure you all check out the forum and information there on the Identity Talk website, which is identitytalk4educators.com. And then we also have a merch shop. So if you're someone that likes merch, we got some new merch that's out on the shop. We have some new shirts. We also have some new accessories that have just been added to the shop. So make sure you get your new clothing and apparel there. And then, yes, you see me on the podcast. Yes, you see me on the screen. But I just want to remind people, Identity Talk Consulting, it is a real company. I do visit schools and provide professional development workshops. I also do keynotes for different schools as well, whether it's in person or virtually, whatever works for them. So if you or your school or organization is looking for your next keynote speaker or professional learning facilitator, you have somebody here. And we are currently looking to visit more schools, not just this school year, but going into the 2026-2027 school year. So make sure you go to the website to learn more about our services there. And then what's on the horizon? So these are things that are happening in the near future. Number one, people have been asking me, Kwame, are you going to be doing an e-course based around Learn to Relearn? The answer is yes. There will be an e-course coming soon. So if you're someone that's more into digital courses and you're not a huge reader, we're going to convert this book into an e-course that you can take self-paced. So I just finished doing the module recordings. Still need to do some work on the back end and just find a home for this course, but it's coming, y'all. So stay tuned for that. What else? I just signed a new partnership with the Selling Club, which is a global educator community that does focus around identity affirming education, but also they do a lot of different things. So this is just a network of educators who are thought leaders, who are activists, who believe in all things international education. So I am fortunate to be a part of that community now. And I also have an e-course that's going to be coming out soon through Selling Club that's focused on one of the chapters of the book, which is chapter 8, dominant narratives, combating dominant narratives through counter storytelling. So make sure you check that out. I'll be at Senia Unplugged next weekend doing a presentation focused on how to design equity-centered learning ecosystems for marginalized and neurodiverse students. So this is something that is very true and dear to my heart. And I'm going to be sharing my story through this workshop. So if you are someone that wants to be a part of this conference, make sure you register with Senia. And there's the ALOC conference coming up in Thailand in February. I plan on being there, so hopefully I'll see you all there. More book talks. I have one with the Massachusetts ASCD community. So that'll be sometime in 2026. And then here's the big one. Just signed a new contract with Routledge to write my 4th book. And this is going to be a continuation of all the amazing things my panelists shared about Learn to Relearn. So we're going to continue that thread. And I'm going to actually share some information about it because this actually involves you all. So this is going to be a book, like I said, that's going to be under Routledge. I don't have a permanent title now. So the working title that I have is Cultivating Humanizing Practices for an Identity Affirming Classroom. So while I am going to be taking some of those ideas from Learn to Relearn, I also want to add some more tools, some more insights from folks. And I want to be very intentional about bringing in more stories from the international school ecosystem, because one thing that I realized was that while Learn to Relearn was a very critical text for all communities, a lot of the stories and examples that I shared were within the US K-12 context. So I want this one to be something that is more expansive and more inclusive of our international school educator communities. So here's some information about it. If you're someone who's a writer, you want to get published, you want to write a short section in the book, I am looking for some submissions. So this can come from teachers, students, school leaders, other education professionals, and it has to align with the following chapters here. So if you all just look at the chapters, can you all get a sense of the direction I'm trying to go with this book? Just look at the chapters. What do these chapters have in common? Anybody want to take a guess? And this is no coincidence. This is intentional, how these chapters are titled here. Well, I will share this. So, as far as what got me thinking about this particular book idea, yep, there's been so much conversation around DEI work. What does DEI work look like, right? And how there's so much censorship around language, particularly in the United States. You can't say this, you can't say that. You have not just right-wing government officials, but just other folks who are creating checklists that have words that you cannot say. And if you see these words, then you need to censor or eradicate these texts or materials from the schools or from libraries. So I said, all right, let's take a different approach. So rather than using the acronym DEI, let's go ahead and actually break down what that encompasses. So these are just the 6 chapters that pretty much tell us what it really means to engage in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and all the other iterations of it, but also what it means to combat identity-based harm in our schools. So if you're someone that is working not just in an international school, but in any school community, and you have some stories that you want to share that align with at least one of these chapters, I am collecting submissions from now up until April of next year. So we're looking for any pieces that range from 500 to 1,000 words. You can submit it as a Word doc or a Google Doc. And now, if you want to keep yourself anonymous for just different reasons, you can include that in your submission. But for those that don't care, share your name, the role that you're in currently within your school or organization, the country you're currently based in, and then just a short bio ranging from 50 to 75 words. That's it. But this is a book that I do want to ensure includes stories from different parts of the globe that's focused around humanizing practices in identity affirming classrooms. So if that sounds like you, I invite you to submit. And I'll be talking more about this in the coming months. All right. So the next thing is another big announcement. So it's the end of an era, and you all are the first to hear this. After 6 years, I will be closing the curtains on the Identity Talk for Educators Live podcast. So we have 5 episodes left. The reason why is because I feel like I'm at a place where I'm at a different place in my life now. A lot of things have happened in my personal life, in my professional life that have led to this decision. And I just felt like it's time. It's time. So this isn't a sad moment. I think it's a moment of celebration because to be able to do this podcast for 6 years and to be able to interview more than 250 educators globally and give them a platform to share their stories, that is a gift that I will forever cherish. Those stories are going to live forever, and people are going to be able to go back to these stories and learn about these different educators who graced the stage. So I'm very proud of the work that I was able to do over that time. And this is something that I just realized as I was doing the math. So right now, we're currently about to release episode 229 next Thursday. So there's 5 more episodes left. I've already put out 228 episodes. By the time I get to the final episode on December 18th, that'll be the 233rd episode. Now, the number 233 has very important significance to me. This is wild. I did not plan this. Now, let's think about country codes. What country has a code, like phone number code, of 233? What country? You could feel free to look it up on Google. Just type in which country has a country code 233 for like phone numbers. Come on. Right, Gashana, Ghana. Like that's wild. That the last episode that I ever do of this podcast will be number 233, which is actually the country code for my home country of Ghana. If that's not God, if that's not divine intervention, whatever you want to call it, I don't know what is. This was supposed to happen. That's how you know. This confirms that the podcast had to end on that note. But I'm just thankful for everything. So I am planning on doing a live stream celebration where we just bring in some old guests, from newer guests to past guests, just to reflect on the past 6 years. I feel like it's a call for celebration. I do plan on being back on the screen again in a different form, but it's not going to be anytime soon because I have a lot of important work ahead, which I don't want to share right now. But let's just say that I'll be back in the school working in a leadership capacity. I'll leave it at that. And because of the nature of this work and the attention that it deserves, I felt like it was important for me to close this chapter of Identity Talk and really focus on the work ahead that's going to require a great deal of my attention. So that I promise I'll share more about when I'm able to share, but I want to just put that out there in the universe. And yeah, finally, for folks who want to stay connected, these are my handles. Many of you who are currently watching, you already know where to find me. But for those who are new to who I am and new to Identity Talk, these are where you can locate me online. And like Coach Prime says, I ain't hard to find. Just Google my name, all the stuff will come up. So make sure you all do that. And oh yeah, I know we're about to wrap up here, but if there are folks who want to get up on stage and share some things, so those who have been watching, I'm going to put the link here for those that want to just hop on stage and just share some words real quick. That's the link. So you copy and paste this link. That'll bring you into the stage and I can bring you on. So if you wanted to share any final words or affirmations, I'll leave that up there for a couple minutes. And then, of course, the reason why we're here is because of this book. So if you still haven't bought a copy of this book, you could order it today, anywhere. You could go to Stenhouse, you can go to Routledge, you can go to any online book retailer. Also, please, if you love the book, don't just leave a 5-star review. If you have an independent bookstore, particularly a Black and Brown-owned bookstore that holds books, please recommend Learn to Relearn for that bookstore. We want to make sure that we support our Black and Brown bookstores globally because they do a lot of important work in terms of elevating the stories of our community. So please make sure you do that. That's one thing that I did want to emphasize here, is making sure that we do make that happen. Hey, Janet, no, I'm not at Frugal. I'm not at Frugal yet, but I do want to get the book at Frugal. So, all right, appreciate it. So we're gonna get it in Frugal, and I'm pretty good. I got a pretty good relationship with the owners there. But yes, any bookstores that you know of, please make sure that you go ahead and recommend the book and buy a copy if you don't have one already. But that's all I have for you all today. If there's anybody that wants to get on stage, particularly anybody that's in the audience, the link's right there. Just copy and paste it into your browser. It'll take you directly into the stage, and then I'll bring you on so you can share any final words before we wrap things up. All right, I got my teacher wait time going in my head, so I'll give another few seconds. All right. Dolores. No, it's all good. It's all good. Now, speaking of, looking crazy, I mean, listen, speaking of, look at my hair right now. I haven't gotten a retwist in a while. So I get it. I get it. I get it. But everybody, thank you all for coming on. I appreciate you all. I love y'all. Thank you for supporting this book. Thank you for supporting Identity Talk. And most importantly, thank you for supporting me throughout my long journey that is still ongoing. So have a great day wherever you are in the world. And I look forward to connecting with you all sometime next month when I share my other update. But until then, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye-bye, everybody.